on all the extenuating circumstances, etc. But it had already been decided behind closed doors. It's so funny that there is indeed a woman who has made it her life's mission.
Further, while incarcerated, Mr. Peterson was recently stabbed in prison, as many of you know. A tragic incident that underscores the urgency of this situation and the risk to his life while this case remains unaddressed. Governor Newsom, I respectfully urge you to issue a pardon for Daystar Peterson, known as Tory Lanez, in a full and impartial review of his case.
Tory Lanez and his legal team just flipped the script in a shocking twist that's turning the entire case on its head. In a bold move, they are now accusing Kelsey, Megan Thee Stallion's former best friend, of being the real shooter behind the incident. Sounds unbelievable, right? But it gets even more intense. This time, they are not just making noise online. The evidence they are presenting is serious and could change everything.
We are here today to bring to your attention some information Unite the People believes is exculpatory for Mr. Daystar Peterson's case, professionally known as Tory Lanez. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell. Unite the People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf. The district attorney's office has already responded. The case is fully briefed. We're just waiting for the appellate court's decision. We were willing to wait for the appellate process to play out, but given that brutal, unprovoked attack, we felt it necessary to come here today to provide you with this information.
This new twist could turn the entire narrative on its head, but here is where things get even more disturbing. Every time new details emerge that suggest Tory might have been framed, something violent suddenly happens to him behind bars. Just days before this jaw-dropping evidence surfaced, Tory was reportedly stabbed 14 times by another inmate in an unprovoked attack. It is like clockwork. Each time he gets a step closer to clearing his name, a life-threatening incident follows. Seems too consistent to be a coincidence, right? Feels more like something sinister is at play. And while all this unfolds, the California governor? Completely silent. Not a word.
This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson, even though unknown DNA was found on the gun.
While names with serious influence are being exposed, those in high places are pretending not to notice. The silence? Deafening. Something feels deeply wrong. With evidence loud enough to shake the foundations of the justice system, why are the people in charge acting like nothing is happening? Still, not everyone is staying quiet. A few brave individuals are stepping forward, shedding light on how flawed the investigation really was. Crucial bullet fragments vanished. The gun's serial number was sealed, preventing the defense from even checking who owned it. Officers ignored basic protocol, failing to mark shell casings on the scene or test others at the scene for DNA. That is not justice, that is negligence, and it gets worse. Knowing their case was weak, the prosecution added gun enhancement charges, meant for gang-related crimes and armed robberies, just to inflate the situation and justify a decade-long sentence. It was not about fairness, it was about stacking the deck. Tory's father, who deserves real credit, joined forces with a fire. Investigator, a nonprofit justice group, and respected journalists who have tracked the case from the very beginning. Together, they are uncovering courtroom deals done behind closed doors, shady legal tactics, and key evidence that mysteriously went missing. The proof? Eye-opening. It is becoming crystal clear. This was not a fair trial. You can still believe Megan's side if you choose. That is your right. But after hearing all of this, it is hard not to question what is really going on. Because right now, the puzzle pieces just do not fit. The bigger question is, who did Tory Lanez, real name Daystar Peterson, offend so badly that they buried him under a 10-year sentence with barely any solid proof. Someone wanted him out, and they are pulling strings to keep it that way. To you. The center of this storm is a nonprofit called Unite the People. From day one, they have made it clear. They believe Tory was set up, and the people who could have helped simply stood by. They are urging us not to let these unanswered questions fade away. Justice should never fear the truth. Dr. Martin Luther. King Jr. once wrote from Birmingham jail, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." If we truly believe that, we cannot look away while injustice unfolds in plain sight. The founder of the Quell Institute for Public Safety, who lost his own innocent brother to violence in 2022, echoed that same call for accountability. He emphasized that standing for public safety means not just punishing the guilty, but protecting the innocent and standing up to politically charged prosecutions. And he firmly believes that is exactly what is happening here. The CEO of Unite. The people did not hesitate to speak out either. He made it clear, this is not just some conspiracy theory. They have documents and details the public has never been shown. And their mission is not only to prove Tory's innocence, but to shine a light on how broken the system has been from the very beginning. Then came a bold statement from their lead consultant. He did not sugarcoat anything. This case was never handled properly. And just when Tory was preparing his appeal, the New York Post began digging into the story. What happened next? Another violent, unprovoked attack on Tory inside jail. Same pattern, same timing. Every time he makes progress, violence follows. It is starting to look less like coincidence and more like a warning. Someone clearly does not want the truth to come out. Then came the moment that froze the room. A new voice entered the conversation. Bradley James. He was Kelsey Harris's personal bodyguard and driver during the original trial. He was there, through it all. Now, he says he cannot stay silent anymore. According to Bradley, he personally heard Kelsey admit to firing the gun, not once, not twice, but 3 times. He says Tory tried to stop her by grabbing her arm, which caused 2 more accidental shots to go off. That revelation is explosive. And Kelsey? She is staying completely silent. Thank you all for showing up and standing in solidarity. I want to take a moment to honor every single person who has embraced the name One Umbrella. This movement was never about fame staying locked within our family. It was born from the idea that anyone, anywhere, who needed shelter, figuratively or literally, could find protection under this umbrella. The vision started with Daystar's brother, known as Wolfgang Peterson. So to everyone who has shown us love, kept us in prayer, and is wearing free Tory shirts with pride, thank you. Jono, could you hand me one of those shirts, please? Those wearing these shirts are not just remembering Tory, they are standing for truth. I need you to know that since 2021, I watched as Alex Spiro, once a spin doctor for the NBA, and now a powerful New York attorney, led a media assault that turned my son into a villain in the public eye. Back then, God whispered to us, there is a time to stay silent and a time to speak. We chose silence, for our faith and for protection. I was quiet because I trusted the process, and I feared backlash that could harm my son while he was locked behind bars. But now the time for silence is over. It is time to speak boldly. Today, I stand here as his father and also as the voice of our family. Tory, real name Daystar Peterson, has 7 siblings, 5 brothers and 2 sisters. He is not alone in this fight, and today I want to clear the air on a few things at his request. First off, no, he does not have a drinking problem. That rumor is false, and it has nothing to do with what unfolded that night. The incident did not go down in some wild, drunken moment. He had just stepped out for breakfast around 6:30 a.m. when cell doors opened. As a Canadian living in the US, I have watched American leaders swear on the Bible to uphold justice and truth. Yet just 58 days ago, I sat in a courtroom and watched my son be convicted under a system that claims to honor that same sacred oath. The contradiction is heartbreaking, and still from Kelsey, silence. Since taking her immunity deal, we have not heard a word from her. No reaction to her former bodyguard's claims, no denial, No clarification, just crickets. If someone accused you of something so serious, would you really say nothing? That kind of silence echoes louder than words. What makes it even more compelling is that Bradley James' version of events lines up almost perfectly with what eyewitness Sean Kelly testified. He saw two women fighting, then two men intervened, then gunfire from the passenger side, exactly where Kelsey had been seated. So why was Tory the only one tested for DNA? Why were no results ever shared for Kelsey or the driver? Were they lost or deliberately hidden? And here is where it gets shadier. During Kelsey's police interview, a record label executive, not her lawyer or family, was allowed to sit in. Why would someone from the industry be present during a legal interview? Who or what were they protecting? The more you dig, the more this smells like a cover-up. And Megan's silence? It is just as calculated. Behind closed doors, her image has been heavily protected by industry insiders, label bosses, elite PR reps, and media consultants. They have cleaned up interviews, rewritten timelines, and erased inconsistencies. Remember when the narrative kept flipping back and forth? First, she was the victim, then Tory was. Which is it? They are painting over cracks, hoping no one notices the foundation is broken. But Tory's team is done waiting. They are going above the legal maze, taking this straight to the governor. They are calling for either a full pardon, or at the very least, his release for recovery. This is no longer about one man. It is about the system, the truth, and refusing to stay quiet in the face of injustice. After the most recent violent incident, fear has taken hold. Those closest to Tory Lanez are terrified he may not survive another day behind bars. They say if tragedy strikes, it should not be brushed off as misfortune. It would be deliberate. A silent execution. From their perspective, everything happening now has been orchestrated from the very beginning. What began as a routine press briefing quickly unraveled into a gripping reveal of layers upon layers of systemic manipulation. Gianno Caldwell, founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, and known for his no-nonsense commentary, stepped forward next. He did not come to comfort or coddle. He brought a stack of documents, a hardened voice, and months of relentless investigation. After half a year digging through legal records, courtroom transcripts, and case files, Gianno's verdict was blunt. Tory was never meant to win. He even claimed that no matter who defended Tory, even if it were Jesus Christ himself, former DA George Gascon would have ensured defeat. This case, according to Gianno, is not just about a verdict. It is about a life hanging in the balance, manipulated by a larger political strategy, spiraling beyond control. Every move felt too convenient, too scripted, like a well-played chess match where the outcome was pre-written. What happened in that courtroom sent ripples across pop culture, splitting fan bases, igniting arguments in group chats, and dividing social media timelines. Even before new evidence surfaced, a significant portion of the public already felt something was off. They saw the inconsistencies. They pointed to the contradictions. And now, even some of Tory's former critics are rethinking their stance. The media picked sides early, painting Tory as the villain and pushing that narrative hard. But this recent wave of facts? It is exposing cracks in the prosecution's story and putting California's justice system under an uncomfortable spotlight. Then came the emotional climax. Tory's father, Sunstar Peterson, took the stage. Not just as a grieving parent, but as a determined truth-teller. His face wore sorrow. His voice trembled with both rage and resilience. He made it clear, his son was no monster. The public image of Tory as a dangerous figure? Manufactured. Sunstar pointed the finger directly at Alex Spiro, the celebrity lawyer with connections to powerful PR machinery. According to him, Spiro waged a full-scale media war against Tory before the trial even began. All the while, Tory's family chose silence, hoping prayer would carry them through. But now, that silence has been broken. Sunstar firmly addressed the rumor that Tory had a drinking problem, calling it a cheap smear tactic to turn the public against him. He also shared something chilling. Tory had called just days before sentencing, warning that something was about to go wrong. That call, did not sound like guilt. It sounded like someone who knew the deck was stacked. And then, Sunstar spoke of the letters. So many people, friends, colleagues, supporters, had been ready to vouch for Tory's character, ready to speak up in court. But it felt like none of that mattered. According to him, the judge seemed to have made up their mind long before the proceedings even began. The sentence? Just the final stamp on a decision that had already been made. When Sunstar turned to Megan Thee Stallion, many expected bitterness. But instead, he offered grace. He said his family had prayed for her, that Tory never wanted revenge or carried hate. It was never about violence for their family. That moment flipped the script. Even amid heartbreak, Sunstar stood tall, full of compassion, clarity, and resolve. But the most shocking claim? He said media outlets knew Tory's sentence before it was even officially announced in court. He suggested that some bloggers and journalists may have been paid to steer the public narrative. Though he did not mention names, his tone made one thing clear. He knows what is happening behind the scenes. Sunstar's speech was not just about defending his son. It was about exposing a justice system that, in his view, never gave Tory a calm, fair shot, a process where the verdict was decided before the trial ever began. With raw emotion in his eyes and fire in his voice, he made a desperate plea. Listen to their side. Hear the truth they have been holding back for too long. This press conference was not just a media moment. It was a demand for accountability. And it hit hard. Now, Tory Lanez remains behind bars, stabbed, silenced, and still fighting to have his story heard. Meanwhile, the system marches on like nothing ever happened. But this time, the truth has been spoken, and it cannot be ignored. People are waking up, realizing that this case may not just be about one man. It is about what happens when the justice system starts chasing headlines instead of truth. And that realization, that is what truly shakes the soul. Tory's team made their stance clear. They believe he was framed, villainized, and crushed under an agenda crafted by powerful forces. They believe the real truth was buried, and anyone who tried to dig it up was silenced. From the start, Tory was marked, and the courtroom never gave him a fair chance. But even now, one message still stands tall through the pain. Tory never hated Megan, not even once, and that changes everything.